All right. Hello, everyone. How are we all doing today? I'm doing good. I understand last lecture ended a little late, so I guess we're gonna wait for a few more minutes for people to join. Yeah, but other than that, how's it going so far for this week's content? Two heavy days. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, installation and setup usually takes a little time, but it's good to see that both are done in two different lecture videos. So if you ever need to refer back, you could definitely take a look at it where you get both SQL and NoSQL. So that's a really big plus. You could use whichever you like depending on your usage. But I understand for the coming assignment, we will be using SQL, like the PostgreSQL, I think, yeah. We will be using that for our coming assignment. It's going to be a continuation of the last one, so that's good. But yeah, other than that, how do you feel about it? Is it easy or do you think it's difficult so far when it comes to databases? Not too difficult, but challenging. But yeah, one thing though, once you're actually done setting up with all your databases and everything, and you understand how the connections work, it's gonna be a walk in the park for you guys. So yeah. Okay, for sure. All right, so this lecture will essentially be a sort of review of what we've done in the last lecture. We can take a look at what we have done, what Alim has done in his codes. We can take a look at that. I will be going through creating your own database or in general your own, what's this? Oh, your MongoDB account and everything. I'll go through that again so that it's thorough. All right, so okay, let's wait for a few more minutes and then let's begin with the review. All right. I think a few people have joined. So let's slowly begin and maybe more people will join later on. All right, so let's begin with the review. Okay. Let me do a slide share. All right. So yeah, NoSQL databases. So far, we've seen that there are two kinds of databases, SQL and NoSQL. So my question to you guys would be, what's the key difference between the two? Or if you had to characterize both the types of databases in one line, how would you do it? Fixed schema and flexible schema. Okay. Anything about the organization of the both the databases? Collection of data differently. But yeah, in general, like any difference between the organization of the both the databases. SQL is structured and relates to one another. NoSQL is less structured, more free-form with no fixed relations. Correct. Exactly. All these are good answers and correct. Relational, no relational, definitely. But also, one of the key differences between the two, obviously, relational, non-relational, this is probably the main. And a structural difference would be SQL deals in tables, columns, rows, and NoSQL is more of a document-based structure that we have seen in quite a few places. We have seen that in Mock API. We are seeing that in MongoDB. There's also this tool online called Google Firebase. Their cloud system or real-time database, that's also a NoSQL database in a more document type. You guys could check that out as well. But for today, we will be talking about MongoDB. Let's move forward. Let's see what's there. Okay, so learning objectives. In the first lecture, we started off with exploring MongoDB, document-oriented data storage, including JSON-like documents and collections. Then we learned how to use Mongoose as an abstraction layer for MongoDB, covering data model definitions and interaction methods. Then we saw successfully logging into MongoDB, create databases, and obtain connection URL that's going to be needed in our code. Then we saw visualizing the server-side adjustments necessary for integrating MongoDB into our application, and then implement these key steps. 1, making connection. 2, defining data models. 3, adapting endpoints. At the very end, we saw applying best practices for error handling, returning the appropriate status code and error messages to the client. So this is stuff that we have seen in the first lecture. I'm just going to roughly go over all of that. So over here, we have a visualization of MongoDB. As we can see with an animation, we only see the outside, but actually inside the NoSQL, we have NoSQL database, as we can see from the picture over here. So this is essentially what a database inside it would look like. So it starts off, you could say these are layers, or you could even call them folders, to be honest. So a bigger container over here is cluster. Then the cluster usually has a database. And in the database, you can have multiple collections. You could have user collection, notes collection, whichever you like. But it depends on how you're designing it. So that's something that's very interesting, being able to have multiple collections in a single database. That we are storing the data in a much more flexible manner without having to create tables for these. All right, and on the right, we can see over here that this is essentially what a NoSQL database data looks like, or the data stored in the database will look like this in a more JSON format. Navigating MongoDB. Okay. So as you can see over here, you create account, create a database, select MO AWS. So MO or M0, I believe that's the free version. If you want, you could get the paid version as well if you're working on a broader scale project, depending on what you need. And then AWS, Amazon Web Services, we know that. And then we have a region that is recommended. Usually you don't have to work with that. It is what it is. Then you set your username and password and add your current IP address. Then we have network access, add IP address from anywhere. So that's the IP address that I believe Olim showed, 0.0.0.0/0, something like that. Under database, click connect, select drivers. Now, once we follow the instructions to get set up on our local, notice the connection string. So when you go to connect, over there, it shows you how to install MongoDB, and afterwards, I believe it will give you a connection link, sort of, or a string, you could call it. And that string or URL will essentially hold these keywords, I would say. So the first would be your username, then your password, then the name of the cluster that you have. And over there, you can also see that you can set your database name too. So that's something that's very interesting. Moving forward, so this is a more dynamic way of visualizing it. You start off by connecting it to the server, then you create the schema. In other words, you set a sort of structure based on which each and every object or each and every block will be updated. Then you have the CRUD functions, the get, post, delete, all that. All these integrated will be running your NoSQL database from your code. So getting started with the implementation, let me stop sharing and open up VS Code. Okay. I believe I do have to clone it because I haven't cloned it in a while. So terminal, I want to do it in my desktop and git clone. Did I spell it wrong? Okay. All right, it should be there. Open folder. If you guys can't see VS Code, do let me know. Desktop, coding in color, open up. Okay. So I believe today's first one was this MongoDB version 1. Okay. So before we go into the code, let's actually see the account creation one more time. MongoDB. Okay, so let's go into this. Let me open up a new account. Okay, so this is brand new. I don't have an account with this email ID, so this will be from the scratch. All right, so I check that box out, press submit. So this is something that they want me to fill out. My primary goal. Okay, let's say I wanna learn MongoDB. Let's say new to MongoDB. JavaScript. What kind of project? Probably customers. Okay. This, I don't know. Let's just go ahead with whatever we have. So finish. Okay. So it directly takes me to the deployment part. So I'll do this later, so at least I can do it from my dashboard. All right. So once you're done signing in, this is what the dashboard will look like. You press create, select this MO or M0 actually. This one's free. AWS, this one's selected. My one's from Oregon, apparently, okay. So cluster 0, you cannot change the name once the cluster is created. Let me just call this coding in color. Okay. And create deployment. All right. So let's cancel this. Okay. So I'm in database. I go for connect. I understand I don't have a user, so I actually think I should. Just name, I'm just gonna call this test. Create database user. Choose a connection method. I'm gonna select driver. So yeah, over here you see, it asks you how to install or shows you how to install MongoDB, but I believe we're using Mongoose for that. We don't have to worry about this. But this is what we need. We have our link over here. We copy this and we can finish this up. So, okay, we don't need this right now. Let that load. And actually, why is this loading for this long? Interesting. Okay, let's see if working with something over here changes it. All right, so I have my own link over there. I will open up this code that we have already created. So we started off by installing Mongoose. Then we went on to create our link. So let me change this one to mine actually. So my password was test. Okay, and let me just call this afternoon lecture. All right, that should be good for this. Okay, now my link should be set up. I go on to create the connection using mongoose.connect. And then if it is connected, I will print successfully connected to database, or if it's an error, we say failed connecting to database. Then we will go on creating our schema. And after that's done, so the schema over here, as we know, it's the basic structure of how the object will look like, or the objects will look like. And next we have const person mongoose.model. So this right here, this is sort of like a class. And then once this is created, we could just let me uncomment this. We could just create an instance for that class, you like this, where we call the name of that class and we just sort of mention the name and age, which is essentially the structure over here, the schema, into our instance. And once that's done, the instance is being created, saved, and the results being consoled. Okay. So let's actually see what's happening over here. Okay, that's done. If you're monitoring, browse collections. Do I have collections? Obviously, I don't. Interesting. Okay. I don't. Why do I not? Because I am not running this yet. So let's try it. I have to get into the directory. Module 5. CD lecture examples. Then lastly, MongoDB version 1. Right? Yeah. That's the spelling. That should be correct now. Now I am gonna run this init. Okay, let's do it. npm run init. All right. I have to install Mongoose as well. npm install. Okay, now let's try npm run init. Okay, spelling mistake, my bad. Okay, it's successfully connected, and let's check our database now. I will refresh this. Let me check this out. People, and I have John Doe over here. Is the first example sort of clear on what's happening, how we created the connection? Even if you want to try yours on our code, you could just do what I did. Create your own link, change it over here. I believe it was over here. Change it like so. and you're all set. Okay, so that should be good for that. But any questions so far? Anyone? All right, okay, let's proceed then. Then we are done with the first part. We can now, let's go back to the slides and see what the next part is all about. So this is the backend setup for the MongoDB version 3 app, I believe. So as you can see over here, we have a nice image going on. We have the server and database connected. Then we have the routers over there. And inside models, Node.js is kind of connecting to both database.js and also referring back to the routers to set our routes. And then we have .rest client to kind of help us understand what kind of an output we would get. And obviously utils, we have that as middleware. We have all the middlewares working over there. We're checking for unknown endpoints and whatnot. So let's actually, unless you have more, no, let's see the slide. All right, Samina, you have a question?
Yeah, I could just can you just repeat what the models are, because I have it in my mind. I just have a Stack Overflow right now. What are the models?
Okay, okay. I think if I show it, explain it with the code, it's gonna be easier. So let me actually go into the code and explain that. That was MongoDB 1, and this is MongoDB version 3. So inside this, so if you take a look at this image, we have Node.js inside inside models, and there's a Node.js inside routers as well. And from the looks of the image, the Node.js from routers is actually referring, or wait, it's the other way around. The Node.js from the models part is referring back to the Node.js in routers. So let's take a look at it. Why? So this is what the Node.js inside models looks like, right? Yeah. And this is what the Node.js inside router looks like. So what's happening is if you check this Node.js inside the models folder, or the models part, you could say, from the image. Over here, we're essentially creating our schema. We are setting our schema. We are essentially creating the groundwork for our MongoDB, or we're just essentially creating the base from the library that we just imported, Mongoose. We're just setting up the base, and later on, we're sending it out to this part, which is nodes.js inside routers. If you see over here, we are also importing that from models. So what that's,
Can you show the picture, the picture alongside, so we can just
oh,
follow?
for sure. Let me do something over here. Okay, I think that was wrong. I didn't want to do that. Right, how about I do this? And we take this over here. Okay. Has to be a better way. Okay, got it. And this over here. Is this good enough for this side?
Yes.
Okay, I think I zoomed in too much. Well, let me get rid of this.
So is Note a kind of a parent of Notes? Is that what it is?
In a way, yes. So notes over here, note, I believe, inside modules, in models actually. Note inside models has all the structure laid out, as in the schema for our MongoDB database that we have just imported from the Mongoose library. If you see, it's like this. Where is it? If you see this file over here from, that's not it. That's middleware, never mind. This one. Okay, so if you see this, over here, we are essentially doing the same thing, but we're doing it all in one file. But what's happening over there is we are creating the base in a separate file, and we're kind of just passing it on to the routers folder or the notes.js in the routers folder. And inside that, we're essentially just creating all the routes for different functions, you could say. If we take a look at it, this is what it should look like. We import, okay, that's not it. Okay, we import our node.js from models. And from there on, if you see, we kind of go forward to create our get, the CRUD operations, actually, the get method over here, creating your endpoint using that. And we are getting a response from it as well. So
it's unidirectional from the note to notes.
yes, you are correct. If I show you the direction again, I think it goes something like this. Let me get rid of this. So we start off from databases, okay? Let's start off from here. I'm gonna extend this. Okay, so if you see over here, we are doing the first step of creating our connection, which is putting in our link and then going on to connect the application to the database. Then we console if it's successful or not, and then we catch the error if it's not. And if you see afterwards, we export this. We export this to where? We are exporting this to the node.js inside models. So you could, as you can, like you said, it's kind of unidirectional. It just turns out to be unidirectional because it doesn't really have a both way usage, because that file, I believe wasn't this, was it? No. So this file over here doesn't really need anything from this file. And I'm closing everything, yeah. So database.js does not really need anything from Node.js, but Node.js, it needs whatever's inside database.js, which is essentially the connection between the database and the application. And later on, if you see, after we have created the basic structure of the database, we pass it on to the routers. The reason behind putting all this inside the routers file is because it kind of allows us to have that kind of labeling in case we need to change something. So when you're actually doing it in a broader scale, it's the same as React, the same as the concept where we are creating different components so that they're reusable. For example, we might want to use this over here. Where did it go? Database.js. We might want to use this somewhere else as well. So it's good to have this as a separate folder. That way, if you have any other files that needs to catch all this, we could just go ahead and import it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, amazing. So let me see the chat. I think I have a few questions. All right, the first question is models and routers are predefined. Does that mean we created it or they created by themselves during installation? So this, I believe, we created on our own. These files, we created it, but we created it in a way so that you get the basic structure of how it works. It's more, yeah, because it's labeled nicely. But no, these won't really automatically come up with like the Create React app. That's different.
Basically, all this has been written by Aleem in the previous class. So that's why perhaps she's not seen you type it. That's why maybe she's thinking it was.
Oh yeah, so I'm essentially working with Aleem's code that he did earlier. I'm just kind of going through that again. But yeah, these are the ones that you have to create on your own. And ideally, it's really good if you could section it out like this, then it's less confusing for you as well. And if you're working as a team, definitely it's going to help everyone. So I have another question. When you create schema for notes, that means you try to add new collection to your database. Yes, you're correct. We are trying to add a new collection to our database. I really haven't gotten into setting up my database with this. It's still Aleem's, so I'll get back to that.
This
But
Tasneem, this database URL, it's the link for the cluster, right?
yes, this is the link for the cluster, exactly.
So we make the connection first with the cluster, then
Mhm.
we create the database through a VS Code to that cluster, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
One thing
got
that
it.
you could do is, let me get back to normal screen. Okay. All right. So one thing that you could do is when you're working with these kind of databases and you're working in multiple apps from the same cluster, logically this should work. So I need to copy my link again. It's over here, I believe. Okay. No, that's not mine. This is mine. So I'll just copy this link again. So what I'm saying is when we go back and paste it over here, I'm gonna change my okay, this is what I don't like about this. All right. Okay, so I will be changing the name over here. This will just create another database over there, I think. So we can try that out. Okay, we'll minimize that. Everything is good over here. This is a package as well. Amazing. But what I have to do is I will have to go back to that folder again. No, I don't want split terminal. Get rid of this. I'll get rid of this as well. So I'm in that module 5, CD lecture examples. Okay, CD MongoDB version 3. Okay, and I believe over here it's server, so npm run server. Okay. npm install npm run server. Oh, there you go. I might have to open up that port. Local 3000, but that doesn't work. Change it to 1. Unknown endpoint, of course. Okay. So that's not really helping, but at least we know that the connection is successful and we don't really have any endpoints right now. But okay, if the connection is successful, we can go in over here to our collections. And okay, that's odd. Yeah, mine seems to be a little slow for some reason. I noticed they have some sort of CSS going on over here. I thought that was just dirt on my screen. Or is it? No, it's CSS, never mind. Okay. Hmm. Oh, that's why. Okay. I think I know why. View deployment. Collections. Here you go. There I have a new database that says notes. But as you can see, there's nothing over here because we haven't really entered anything. For that, we have to do a post. And if we take a look at our notes.js from routers, we have created a post request over here. So how do we put that to work? Let's actually write it down here. Let's just write down my, okay, this works too. I'll just write send request and it should be updated in my server as well. There you go. So yeah, when you're working with the same cluster, but from different applications for different purposes, this is something that you could do, potentially creating your own different database over here for different applications. So that's for people, this is for notes. Okay, I mean, that's about it, to be honest. So database is created through VS Code in database.js. You are correct, exactly. It's not really being created per se in database.js. It's, let me just show you again, okay. So in database.js, it's not really being created per se. The connection is just being made. And once you are actually calling this to your modules over here, that's when the connection actually, I believe, establishes or begins. Because over there, nothing's going on. It's just we're stating the connection. The main work is actually happening over here and in nodes.js. So once we are over here in nodes.js, the connection is being created from VS Code to the server. For the collection, it gets created when we are writing down these new notes over here. If you go back to here again, as you can see, we are creating the schema and we are pushing in a new note. And we are exporting it to routers. And over here from this file as well, we are just creating the notes itself, which is being added to the collection over here. Does that make sense?
Still confusing, Tasneem, about creating the database. Like I know in the models folder, once you create in the node, the schema, that's mean you are define the schema for the collection in the database, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but how you create the database? Like already the link that you copied from Mongo's, it's for the cluster, right? Then you pass the name and the link for the database that it's already not created in the beginning. You know what I mean? Like the database URL, you just
Mhm.
add the node name. That's creating of the database.
Yes, essentially. So the thing is, this works in a different flow of code because we're doing it in separate files. So let me get back to it. In database.js, we're essentially creating the connection and everything. Actually, this is where the connection happens.
Okay, but
And
this
our,
you mentioned the database name there. It's
yeah,
after nodes, right?
yes, right over here. I believe it's over here.
But this is if it's not defined in Mongo, it will define a new database.
Yes, it will define a new database. Exactly.
Okay.
That's the whole point of me changing that name over there. You could name it whatever you like. Now, if you want to stay in the same database, I wouldn't suggest changing the name. Keep the name the same as you want. But if you want to create a different database for this application, you could do that. That's something.
Okay.
What was that your main question?
Yes, I got it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's about it. So I did it because I wanted a separate database for this application. But if I wanted to do it in the same one, I could do it. All right.
And if I want to create many collections, I will do in the models. I will create many files, right? For each models, for each
Yes.
collection. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, so that's about it for this, honestly. You guys have any other questions? Because essentially that's how the flow of code is going. You create the connections over here because of the change in name. When you're trying to establish the connection, a new database is created because the server, when connecting, sees that there's no existing database like this, so it just creates one. And once that is done, it moves on to our next application, which is this, in the next file, sorry. Over there, we are just importing the database connection. We are setting up our schema, and then we are moving on to doing some changes. We are deleting the ID and the version number over here by getting it. But I don't think that's a very important thing right now. What's important is understanding the flow at which the code is going. Then we go on over here where we are actually creating the notes itself, as you can see. Yeah, that's about it, to be honest. There's nothing much to it. Any questions? Anyone? No questions? All right. Perfect. So can you show the address of GitHub? Yes, share. Definitely I can share the address to GitHub. I'll copy this and put it over here. Yes, you guys can fork it and download and use it on your own computer. But yeah, that's about it for the connection with the MongoDB database. It's pretty easy, to be honest. Just work on it once or twice on your own. You should be good. Because it has the same concept of mock API, to be honest. It is a very similar concept because of the structure of the database being document oriented. So that should be a very simple thing to transition to. But yeah, that's about it for the review lecture. If you guys still have questions, definitely ask me during the lab. I can open up a breakout room and help you out The lab will actually begin in 10 minutes after we come back from our break. Other than that, another thing to note would be tomorrow we will discuss, today's Thursday, right? Yeah, tomorrow we are going to discuss our new assignment and we will be opening it up for everyone tomorrow as well, I believe. So it's not, the assignments are not hard. Don't get overwhelmed by the number of assignments, to be honest. They're very simple, very small. If you watch the lecture again, or if you understand the concept, if you don't understand the concept, I'd suggest watch the lecture again. If all those are done, the assignment should take you max 1 hour. So there's nothing to worry about. The same with this assignment, the coming one. And I believe the next one will be adding a front end to the whole project. So that shouldn't be very hard. Front end doesn't take a lot of time.
So,
So
will it be on MongoDB or Postgres?
I believe the assignment is on Postgres.
Postgres, okay. And Alim was saying that the front end assignment will be assigned on Tuesday.
I think so. We really haven't come to a conclusion about it because we are still in the process of finishing it up. But yeah, I believe Tuesday is a possible date for the new assignment being introduced, the one after this. But then again, that won't be a lot of work because you're just adding a front end to it. So that should be much easier than this because we've already done front end. We know how it works. But yeah, that's basically it. So let's go on a 10-minute break. We'll come back. I'll open up the breakout rooms. If you have questions, just raise your hand. So yeah, see you guys in 10 minutes.